Welcome to Season 3 of Far Reach Voyages, where we share our love of sailing and adventure travel. Sunrise on the 23rd, I think. Look at that pink glow. Well, we're still in the Gulf Stream. We've got about 20 more miles to go. It's been a very odd crossing. The winds are supposed to be from the southwest, and then that front came through, and we were supposed to swing briefly to the north just for a couple hours, light, and then back around to the southeast and southwest. Instead, we had that big squall, and the wind did go to the north, and then went to the east and southeast, but then it switched back. After we were inside the Gulf Stream, it switched back to the north. It's been blowing from the north, the northwest to the northeast all night. We were already in it. Fortunately, it's been mostly light breeze, about 15 knots. But you can see this water is all churned up, and the current is running kind of from our port quarter to our starboard bow, kind of off that way. So our boat speed right now, if you look in here, you'd say, oh, it's about 5 knots, but it's 8 knots right now over the bottom because of the Gulf Stream. But that's why we're getting some of these square waves in here. Kind of an anxious time because you don't want to be in here when this wind picks up against this contrary current. That certainly hadn't been the plan. The forecast was just not very good for this crossing. There were times last night when the wind was so light we were sailing east, just trying to get the boat to turn around with all these confused waves. We just were patient, hauled sails up, hauled sails down, added horsepower, took horsepower off, watched the sky as best we could in the dark. So far we've done okay. I don't think I've ever seen a sunrise like that. I slept for about an hour this morning just on the cabin stall. I was in my foul weather pants and I didn't want to take them off and put my harness on. I just laid down on the walnut cabin stall. There's just the top, the upper limb of the sun. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And I slept about an hour and got up, and the boat was happily chugging along. Very unsettled weather. Very squally looking clouds. I keep looking out, looking upwind, looking for big blast of air. I want to keep as much sail up as I can to keep driving us through this slop. If I were to go to a double reef main and a staysail right now, we wouldn't even go anywhere. It would just be the current taking us. So we need this working jib up and single reef main to keep driving the boat through this. We're still in the Gulf Stream. We're right on the edge, I think. We're probably making easy 7.5 out there. So figure close to 2 knot 8, and we're cutting across still at an angle. We're not directly aligned with it. That's pretty impressive. 23rd of June, about 12:30. We're about 28 miles from the sea buoy at Morehead City. Spent some time this morning just getting the boat ready, get the Q flag up, even though it's kind of early to do it. You never know what's going to happen when you get in closer to land. It'll be a squall or something else keep you from putting it up. We threw out all the perishables. Customs won't let you bring any of that in. We keep all plastic and foil, metal, things like that we keep on the boat. I checked in the logbook this morning. Became 1,685 miles. It's much longer than the rum line, which was about 1,200 miles, because there was no wind in that part of the Atlantic. So we curved down along the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos in the Bahamas, and then back up. And then when we got up to 28 North last Tuesday, I think it was, and I learned about the big southwester blow that was going to be here Thursday and Friday. That's when I did that divert down towards the Abacos. We just sailed 130 miles down that way and turned around and sailed 130 miles back just for something to do, to kill some time. So that's what caused that to be 1,600 miles. And if you take out the 2 days that we spent hove to and the little bit of mileage that we made with those 2 days, and you added it up and divided it, we made 138 miles a day, which is pretty good for this boat, for any boat this size, especially single-handing. So I tend to slow the boat down at night. We're not operating at maximum speed. We're trying to be safe. So we shorten sail at night. So if we get surprised, we don't get overwhelmed. We weren't becalmed this time, but in some ways this was a harder trip. I think it's just the weather delays and the uncertainties on that. But we were lucky. We didn't get any lightning, or not much. And then the Gulf Stream crossing last night was a little tense because I didn't expect wind out of the north and a bunch of squalls, which we did know about. We spent some time just trying to keep the boat moving last night, and hoisting sail and lowering sail and trying different sail combinations, and we just kept moving to keep the boat moving. And I think we were successful at that. I was pretty tired this morning. But she's been a great boat. She's fast and weatherly and comfortable. And she'll take care of you. There's nothing on her I'd change. I just think she's turned out fantastic. The Atlantic just has a totally different feel here. Once you come across the Gulf Stream and we're up on soundings, which is less than 600 feet, the water color changes. It's more of a slate gray. Doesn't help that it's overcast today. But it's just a different kind of water here. I like single-handed sailing. It's a spiritual kind of thing. It's good for your soul if you're psychologically equipped for it. Not everybody is. You have to certainly overcome some personal anxieties about being out there by yourself. It's not better or worse than any other kind of sailing. It's just whatever the type of sailing you need that speaks to you, I guess. There's a big difference between being lonely and being alone. And I never felt lonely out here. So having that time to yourself, just to reflect, think, and read, and I think it's good for you. It's good for me anyway. Looks like a mama and her calf. Oh, and another one. And another. Okay, I don't know if you can see that through this camera, but that is Cape Lookout, North Carolina, and the lighthouse there, the Diamond Lighthouse, is there at a place called the Bite. It's like a big fish hook. It's very well protected. It's deep, and my plan is to, instead of going into Beaufort on Sunday afternoon with all the sport fishing boats and trying to anchor down there at Taylor Creek on the town waterfront, I'm tired. I got a lot on my mind. I think the best thing to do is just slip into the Bite. Most people will be gone by now, and anchor there tonight. And the tides look like they'll be right in the morning. I can just sail the 8 miles over to, or 7 miles over to the Beaufort Inlet, and then just sail right on in the inlet and up to Taylor Creek. Monday morning I should own the place. So that's where we're headed. Just a couple of miles from the Bite at Cape Lookout. You'll be able to see this. There's the lighthouse, there's the Bite. After all that sailing and filming, the 64 gig storage disk could not hold one more second of film. We were just minutes from anchoring in the Bite and concluding a safe and satisfying voyage. I anchored in about 25 feet of water on a sandy bottom with a legendary Cape Lookout lighthouse in the background. I slept soundly that night. The next morning, I sailed the Far Reach 8 miles past Shackleford Bank and caught a fair tide at the Beaufort Inlet, transiting without difficulty, and then anchored off the town waterfront. A week later, Gail and I took the Far Reach 30 miles up the ICW and west on the Neuse River to our slip in the marina at Cherry Point. Join us in the next episode, where I'll share a few details on a couple major projects to the Far Reach that took me over a year to complete. And then, it's another offshore voyage back to the Virgin Islands. If you enjoyed this episode of Far Reach Voyages, let us know in the comments. Also, consider liking and subscribing, as it tells us you would like to see more videos and it helps the channel grow. See you next episode.